And the heads of schools, we also welcome here Prof. Magda, Prof. Jocelyn, Prof. Chris, Prof. Collier, Marlene, and all the other people here. And I hope we're going to enjoy this time. And I think just as an opening, I just want to say, I reflected back at where we are now, and when I looked back at when did we get our first case, when were we notified our first case? I'm not sure of the date, but according to the HWO webpage, it says the 17th of November. But I think yesterday there was something on TV about a case that was found, I can't remember in Italy or what, but our first case in South Africa was identified on the 5th of March. And how did that affect us? We had our closing notification from the university on the 19th of March. And if you think about it, on the 19th of November, that is this Thursday, it will be 8 months. And today it's lockdown day 231. But as I always said to the students is that there are silver linings, of course, in this COVID. And one of them is what we're having here. We literally having a blended session. And on a Tuesday, a launch. And I think for us, colleagues, if we think back on what we called normal at that time, we would have had this probably on a Friday evening. And we would have had to go back home, and then for us ladies, think of what am I going to wear, what jewelry am I going to put on. And at 13 hours, normally 13 hours, we don't have anything. It's lunchtime for people. And the other interesting thing, this program is 45 minutes. So that's one of the silver linings. And when I thought of that, I just said, being a Christian, I said, this is the day, this is the moment, this is the time that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And once again, this is another tick in all the things that we did not cancel, because I think there were quite a lot of things that we had to cancel. But this is a moment that we didn't cancel, and we can definitely say when we reflect back to say that we did it. And I was talking to Prof. Chris just now, and we're saying against all odds, and that reminded me of a program that was on SABC, Against All Odds. And overall, then, we conquered against all odds, and this is testimony to that. So without a waste of time, I'm going to call over Prof. Diedrichs, who has been coordinating this book launch behind the scenes, and I just want to introduce him to you, Prof. Diedrichs, the floor is yours. I've touched a lot of things.
I'll sanitize my hands afterwards. Can everybody hear me well with the microphone and the mask? Seems okay. So I'll keep on the mask. Maybe for those of you who don't know me, this is how I look. Yes, it's a journey of 2 years, and I must thank Prof. Gert and the faculty that gave me the opportunity to do this. I'm really honored to have done this book. When we started with this about 2 years ago, Prof. Gert actually coaxed me into doing it. At that stage, I was writing the history of the Department of Anesthesiology, and I've still got a 8-5 appointment, so I work most days. So the spare day I wanted to do something for myself became the day that I worked on this book. But I think it was well spent, or time well spent. It started off with reading many minutes and annual reports, but at the same time I requested and begged. I did not threaten. departments for information. And I must say that was quite difficult, and several people assisted me in getting people to send me stuff. But that said, I also had very good cooperation. Prof. Santi van Vieren started the journey with us, and she very soon after we started gave me a summary of what happens in the School for Allied Health Professions, which is now the School for Health and Rehabilitation Sciences. I must also say, and I'm not going to thank lots of people, I do that in the introduction to the book, but I must say I also had very good cooperation from all the heads of the schools, and they eventually made sure that I got the information that I needed. Professor Mafolo canvassed some interns to assist. Unfortunately, that didn't yield very much. But the effort is well appreciated. When I received the information, I wrote some sections myself. I edited the major part of the information I got. Some I had to rewrite, but to make sure that everything is in more or less the same format. I got statistical information from Mr. Jacques Botha and his team from the Directorate for Institutional Research and Academic Planning. I must say they were very helpful. I had to redo all their graphs to make sure that the names are correct. And it's not their fault, it's just they name things differently to us. And I also made sure that it's in the same format for everyone. By June this year, we had a more or less final text, and at that stage, Dr. Annemie Grobler came into the picture, and I must say she supported me very much with language editing, and in the process also proofreading. So between her and me, the text went through many times, and thank you very much, Annemie, for that. And every time I thought we had a better product. The book consists of 8 chapters and 5 appendices with graphs and statistics. The chapter 1 is an overview of the changes since 2004 until this year. The changes in both the format or composition and function of various functionalities within the faculty. The second chapter is a chapter on the Office of the Dean, and then the 5 schools in the faculty, and I arranged them alphabetically, and of course all the departments within these schools. The last chapter contains miscellaneous things such as the library, the NHLS, SADACOL, student organizations. We were unfortunate that the Department of Health couldn't in time provide us something. We didn't feel we should write about one of our partners. We wanted them to do it themselves, but they couldn't provide it within time. That said, elsewhere in the book, there is quite a bit written about the relationship between the faculty and the Department of Health. The appendices is an appendix on student numbers, on degrees and diplomas, personnel, faculty research forum, and publications. And that's more or less my story. You know, my wife arranged many book launches. And the format there usually is the author sits there and people asking questions. I'm quite willing. If you want to ask me questions, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Diedrichs, for that overview. And without wasting any time, I'll give over to Prof. Gert to give us the highlights.
Thank you, Mpo, and welcome, colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity. I need to immediately say that we are launching today the book that deals with the history of the Faculty of Health Sciences from 2004 to present time. But we do not, we mustn't forget actually the book of 1969 to 2004 that was also done for us by a previous, the founding dean actually, Professor François Retief, and appreciation to him also. And you need to read volume 1 and volume 2 together to get a history. Now, if you do have those 2 volumes together, you would know to address in 10 minutes' time the highlights of the Faculty of Health for this volume that we are launching today. But also to other contributors. Prof. Johan actually referred to Professor Santi van Vieren, but I want to also add Professor Marius Coetzee that did for pathology a number of inputs, as well as Professor Marlene Viljoen and Prof. Magda and team actually finished with what Prof. Marlene started, and I do know Prof. Corlia also contributed to some of the inputs that Santi started. So to all of you colleagues, thank you very much, and hearty and appreciative word from my side. Also to all the heads of the department that was involved and provided us with photos and some snippets and so on. We had a precursor to this launch already, and to the 50-year celebrations of the faculty with the Faculty Forum in 2018. And we really actually planned to, and Prof. Joyce will refer to that, plan to celebrate a lot this year. But then came COVID-19, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we've got this virtual launch. So I hope those of you that are joining us on the virtual platform will also enjoy today's launch. I'm sure that the experiences and lessons learned from the past 50 years prepared us to survive 2020, the year of COVID. At that time, introducing our guests and opening at the Faculty Forum, I quoted Florence Hinn, who had remarked, "The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy." How true this is when reflecting on 50 years of the faculty. I was asked, as I said, to point out some highlights. Now, I started by asking myself, how do you do that? How do you point out some highlights? Now, sometimes we are reminded of highlights looking at buildings. National Hospital, that's more than 120 years old. Universitas Hospital, Pelanomi Hospital. And while I was writing, I need to tell you, when I was a student in the early 80s in the clinical area, and in Pelanomi was Friday afternoon lunchtime, was Orthopedics Day in Pelanomi Hospital, where Professor Robbie Snowdown and his whole consultant team and all the students that were rotating at orthopedic surgery would have lunch for orthopedic department. Perhaps I need to say it's steak and mixed grill for the afternoon was on the menu for us. Fond memories, Pelanomi Hospital. But also this building that we are seated in, the FP Retief building, the School of Nursing moving from the main building, Rector, I don't know if you know that, from the main building to Idalia Loods building, the James Marocca building, the Miller Potgieter building, simulation unit of nursing and a postgraduate research center. Prof. Magda will talk about a lot if you ask her. The School of Health and Rehabilitation Sciences Skills Unit, the School of Clinical Medicine Simulation Unit and the Dissection Facility, the Tromsburg Initiative and all the buildings in Tromsburg. The Rural Initiative there is a clear example of where we've excelled in the last 10 years in the area of community engagement, to my opinion. It is also noteworthy that greatness is only diagnosed retrospectively. It is the actions of normal people that lead to greatness. The facilities at Kimberley Hospital, the BSLB lab is the latest add to, if we talk about highlights in buildings. And our latest planned development is the Eastern Free State and on the Kwakwa campus in establishing a footprint for our faculty there. That's to mention a few if we look at buildings as sort of the light in sharing the highlights for us. But then there are again events. For instance, the first year opening, and I remember all of those openings, the excitement of each and every student joining us for another 4, 5, or 6 years. The ping pot parties, and I'm not sure, I tried to find out if it's still going for the students. The open days, Mpo will probably know about the ping pot parties. The faculty forum, always a highlight on our calendar. In 1990, it changed to a symposium format. In 1993, there was the Retief lecture instituted for 1994 to be first lecture. The faculty celebrations in 1995. In 2001, the laboratory sessions was then started separately to the clinical sessions. In 2002, the educational sessions was separated from the clinical sessions. In 2003, for instance, we instituted the Cornelis Nel Medal for educational lectures during the faculty forum. And then also in 2003, Prof. Retief came back for the second time to render the FP Retief lecture. And he actually, we asked him to do that. And he dedicated that lecture to the late Professor Cornelis Nel, the dean that passed in that year. In 2005, for a number of years, we joined AstraZeneca in our forum, and that was for 5 years. Some of the highlights of events. The announcements of the final year results in our faculties is also always special for me and highlights. And I'm sure if you ask each and every student, where were you when it became 12 o'clock and they didn't phone you, that student will tell you. More so, the student that was unsuccessful, that they phoned before 12, will tell you where they were. Graduations, special events, special lectures like the FP Retief lecture, the Fritz Scott lecture, the Henry Dubowski lecture, to mention a few. Our special venues might be also highlights if you look at venues, for instance, the Naas Viljoen in urology venue, the Medikion behind us, the library, the Cornelis Nel suite, and then also the Boffie Strydom committee room. Everybody knows where the Boffie Strydom committee room is. But looking at the history and looking at highlights for our faculty, there were always a number of things that was clear to me in looking at the history. We always looked for innovation. That I found as a golden thread through the history of the faculty. The faculty was also always, seems to me, not afraid for the unknown. Patients were always the focus of the faculty. And perhaps I need to say that again because sometimes one forgets the mere existence of a faculty of health sciences like ours. Patients were always the focus. Quality academic education, we've been known for our postgraduate students and undergraduate students for many years. And then I think what we haven't acknowledged is acknowledgement of one another. But what we do not see every day is the human contribution. So we've seen the venues, we've seen the buildings, the events, but the human contribution is sort of the mortar between the bricks of this faculty. our staff and our students, not just today, but over 50 years. Looking over the history of the faculty and reflecting that it was built by the collective and individual efforts of women and men in the faculty, and ensuring that each and every step is taken with integrity and quality built in to take us forward. The challenge for us is to learn from the present 50 years of reflection, to absorb that into our armor, to take us forward and steadily improve on the foundation of excellence, being a faculty of high class. William Shakespeare said, "Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." Both in my personal experience and reading about and reflecting on the previous 50 years, we've had personnel in the Faculty of Health Sciences for all three categories. We are fortunate to have more members in the category to achieve greatness, excel, and take us forward. These colleagues have provided a service of excellence as much in service delivery as in research and in teaching and learning. One of my colleagues and dear friends, Prof. Mariam Jacobs, said to me a few years ago when I questioned our faculty achievements at the time compared with that of UCT, she said to me, "I need to compare where the Faculty of Health Sciences at UCT was when they had the same time of existence we had at that time, 45 years, and not where they are, which was their 100 years of celebration, their centenary celebrations." That gave me some real perspective. I know we are doing an excellent work. Our alumni is proof of that. That gives perspective that you need to look at what you are doing at the present moment and where are you going with what you are doing. So immediately referring to alumni, I want to thank also each of them, the alumni, that did keep contact with us, are proud to be associated with us, and always announces without fear that they are associated with us. Thank you to you as alumni. Thank you to our staff of 50 years. Thank you to our leaders. Thank you to all our students and our university, especially our university leadership. In our faculty, we have a focus on quality and greatness. We acknowledge that there is power in having knowledge, but wisdom in our strength. Therefore, I conclude with the words of a famous physician, William Osler. The fate of an institution lies in the men, and may I add women, who work in the halls of the ideals which they cherish and keep. Stop the quote. Let this be true for the Faculty of Health Sciences. Let's keep innovating. Let us not be afraid to challenge the academic boundaries, and let us be visionary about the future in addressing the new challenges like digital health, robotic surgery, and reshaping health sciences education. Let us be curious. Let us look at our relationship with our students, both undergraduate and postgraduate, especially in this time of COVID. Let us work with technology in our environment to achieve. Let us be engaged, involved, and let us boldly ask, what if? Let us, in some areas, also be the leaders and pioneers, taking health sciences forward in this country. I hope that this history of the Faculty of Health Sciences will not only offer adequate information to appreciate the huge contributions that members of the Faculty of Health Sciences, but also the university community and the whole Free State had made in health overall in the last 50 years, but also to reflect on those areas in which we could do better. I hope it will motivate you and leave you with a sense of pride. So, this is my virtual toast to the Faculty of Health Sciences on the next 50 years. Enjoy reading the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Hart. It was just so good to go in the memory lane. And what is good for me is that I can relate to some of the things, one of them being Pinkpot. Pinkpot is still alive. And there was a time, and I got to know about Pinkpot when I joined Residence Life. But the format has changed so much. And I think I need to go back and maybe ask you later on where it started. I didn't even know where it started. And there was a time when we wanted to stop it because of the format that the students, knowing how students are, have taken now, and they fought us. So Pinkpot is still alive. and I can also relate to the Kernel Snell education category, because we always asked ourselves, but where do we fit in as in education? And I'm happy to say that I won one of the forums there. I still have that certificate. But thank you so much, Prof. Hart. And I think this also tells us that we really need to go back and read that first book. And I think it's available online, so people can definitely go and have a look at that. But thank you so much, Prof. Hart. And then we're going to, the next session is a question and answer session. So we're opening this session to anybody who wants to ask questions to Prof. Hart, to Prof. Diedericks, but please don't ask me questions. And maybe any other person here. So I'll open that session now. Anybody who wants to ask a question, please? Prof. Diedericks.
Yeah, I just want to tell you a little incident. Gert mentioned Marius Kutsia. He's also mentioned in the book. He started off by giving me quite a comprehensive report on the School of Pathology. And I was difficult with him. I told him that's not the format we need it differently. And then he assisted Prof. Naiker to come up with a report which was more to my liking.
Colleagues, please ask questions. Prof. Joyce.
Okay, use that one. Thank you. My question to Prof. Hart. You mentioned the highlights over the 50 years. I just want to know, are there any regrets during those years that we are celebrating from your side?
Prof. Joyce, I'm not mandated to speak on behalf of everybody that was 50 years in the faculty, but I think some of the regrets, Prof. Joyce, would be at stages to allow the relationship between the university and the Free State Health Department to lapse on that relationship. That might be one of the issues. I think also, Prof. Joyce, there are a number of lowlights in the faculty also. One that I can remember vividly that has got a huge impact on my life after that was the evening our colleague was raped at Pelanomia Hospital in 2010. And I think that had a significant impact. Those of us that worked with the colleague much closer. There were other lowlights also, Prof. Joyce, but one tends to forget the lowlights in a history of 50 years because there's so much good in that. I must say to you personally, what I think we could have done much better is to start at Tromsburg much earlier than when we started it. I mean, occupational therapy started first there in rotating and the concept of community engagement. I think we could have done better. And I think what we need to do is to establish a commitment to those communities. Those communities get used to us, and I think we need to ensure that we are there if we make that commitment originally. So we need to take that commitment also with responsibility to know it's a long-term commitment and not a short-term commitment. So those are some of the comments from my side. I don't know if Prof. Johan has picked up some in the book that he wants to share.
You know, I'm a positive person. I didn't shy away from the problems we had, but I prefer not to be negative. So I didn't report on all things negative in the book. I think there's enough to make people understand what difficulties we had over the past 20 years. But as I said, I prefer to be positive, so I reported on overall rather than some bad things.
Perhaps another comment, Prof. Joyce, is I can remember one night we had an inaugural lecture for Prof. Werner Sinclair, the head of dermatology then, for his professorship, and there was a discussion at the portfolio committee at one of our members attended together. The leader of that gathering was Professor Bongani Mayosi at the stage, the late professor. And for some or other reason, they understood that if they do not do something in health, our medical school will close. So when I came out of the lecture, the inaugural lecture, there was about 140 messages on my phone. So some of the lowlights to tell you of parents and students that wanted to know, are you really closing?
Thank you, Prof. Gert. Thank you, Prof. Dietrich. Any other question, colleagues? It seems there's no other question. So I think we'll move on to the book signing, Prof. Gert, and I think we can combine that with the handing of the first copy to the rector. Prof, you can come.
Rector, it's now my privilege to hand over the book to yourself on behalf of the Faculty of Health Sciences, and thank you again for the university support in 50 years of this faculty. Thank you very much, Rector.
Thank you very much. You should probably just say
Yes.
thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to stand a little bit back so that there's some social distancing, and then I can probably take over the mask. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Professor van Zyl, for my copy. I must admit I had an earlier peep. One of the things that we did as part of building the relationship between the university and the province is we got a sort of an annual get-together of the university executive, the executive of the faculty, and then also the MEC and the executive of the province, just to talk a little bit about our relationships, to make sure that we work on it, because as you know, with relationships you have to constantly work at. And it was at that ceremony that I had a peep of you, but thank you. So I've studied it, Professor Dietrich, over the weekend, so I've gone through it and not read fully through it, but at least through some of the pages. So well done, and also congratulations to you and the team that supported you. Now, I totally agree that I think if you really would like to understand the full history, then you should look at Volume 1 and Volume 2, which is the 2000, was it 1969 to 2004, and 2004 up until now. But the message that I just want to leave to the faculty and to our virtual audience here today is that if you don't understand your history, where you come from, it's very difficult to know where you're going to. And that is often that we forget, because if you're not going back to where you come from, or try to understand where you come from, you're not going to absorb and I rather don't want to use the term lowlights, rather challenges, and also the celebrations, because it's out of that that you develop learnings to plan the future. And the second point, which the Dean talked about innovation, I want to use a different word. I want to use the word reinventing yourself, because in a learning environment such as the university, we always have to renew ourselves. And you would renew yourself through what's happening in your current environment, through what has happened in your history, and also through what is happening through innovation going forward. And that's a message that I think is captured in this book, because there's various different reinventions that has happened over this period. And we should continue with that going forward, as members of the faculty, as students of the faculty, as alumni. And the last point I want to make, which is also a point that the Dean made. So we had one mutual friend, Marion Jacobs. Marion was the Dean of the Faculty of Health Sciences, and I can tell you, I was Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment, and we had very, very long executive committees of Senate meetings at UCT once a month, and we were sitting in the Mafeji room, and I was sitting at this corner, and she was sitting on that corner of the table. And as soon as I know that she takes out her phone, then I can just see the WhatsApps coming through. Then she said, "What a boring point." And so we were keeping ourselves busy talking to one another, but we were paying attention, obviously, to the discussion. But I do think, out of the comment, which is absolutely correct, I think one need to compare apples with apples. But I think it's through innovation that you also create the opportunity to leapfrog, which effectively made those 45 years, 10 years, or even less. And I think that is probably what COVID-19 has indicated to us. It has accelerated things that we probably would have thought would have taken another 4 or 5 years. And that is what we also have to build into our reinvention. This is a faculty, obviously the university is very close to my heart, but this is a faculty that's also very close to my heart. I'm spending quite a bit of time with the faculty. And I think the faculty can go even far beyond where it is at the moment. But we must remember that we're standing on shoulders of individuals that have made major contribution, not only to this faculty, but to the province and to the country, and also internationally. And we've got a duty and responsibility to build on that. And I know that the faculty is doing that, and the faculty has got their full support from the university to take us together on this journey, so that when we, and I don't know whether Professor Diedrichs will write the next 50 years, but when there are those that read the next 50 years from now, that they could say that it was also a moment, not only of reflection, but reinvention and commitment to the next 50 years, to the building of even a much more pronounced and a much more visible faculty of health sciences at the University of the Free State and in the center of South Africa. So again, thank you very much, Professor Diedrichs, and also Professor van Zyl as the Dean, and also to the Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Peterson, for those words, and always making us to think, and that word again, reinventing. So we definitely are able to do that as the faculty. And I'll give over to Prof. Collier for a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, and thank you, colleagues. So many of the people has already been thanked through Prof. Gert and also Prof. Johan. But please, if you can just afford me the opportunity to also do the official vote of thanks. So firstly, to Prof. Diedrichs, I think thank you so much for your dedication, for your hard work through 2 years. And you've alluded to that. I think everyone in the faculty has saw your commitment and your passion for what you did. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for your personal time as well that you spent on this book. We really appreciate it. 40 years, sorry, my mistake. Then also Prof. Gert, thank you for your initiative to really get the history in book form. We all know about a lot of things by word of mouth, but I think it's important to also put it in book form. So thank you also for your just initiating it, but also your input, your support, your assistance. Without you, this would not have been possible. So thank you very much also for that.
I didn't say it earlier, but of course I had quite a number of discussions with Prof. Van Zyl to make sure that we're on the same page with the final result.
Thank you. Then also to all the heads of schools, head of departments, head of divisions, everybody who assisted to get all of this information together. A word of thanks again to all of you. Then also, she has been mentioned before, but on behalf of the faculty also, thank you so much to the language practitioner, Dr. Annemie Grobler, for her assistance, especially in getting it ready for printing. Thank you so much. It's really appreciated. Then to everyone present, either face-to-face or virtually, thank you so much for really joining us for this special occasion today. And thank you for celebrating the 50 years of the faculty by just this one event. And I'm sure there will be many more celebrations, but for us, this is one of the very special ones. So thank you for being here. Then a special word of thanks to Prof. Francis Peterson, the Rector and Vice-Chancellor. Thank you also for your dedication, your interest in our faculty, and thank you for the time that you took to attend this book launch and honoring us with your presence. Thank you very much to everyone.
Can I add one person, Marlene Viljoen? She had to put up with me when I was very particular with the printing process. But she also provided the money. Well, it's not her money.
Yeah, that's very important. Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you. I think we're going to close now. And I was asked to make an announcement for the books out there to the heads of schools. There is a package for each one of you, so you can take a package. And then, or you can collect them from Sandra's office if you cannot carry it because it's a big load. But otherwise, from my side, I think we're closing, and it's 1:55, and we made it. Thank you so much.